Tonight's guest is a psychological illusionist who's been astounding audiences for almost 20 years. In his specials, he's done everything from convincing people that the world has ended to getting them to commit murder. Now, he's seeing if he can create a hero.
For the last 20 years in the UK, on television and stage, I've performed as a psychological illusionist. Now, in these aggressively divided times, when we so readily define ourselves by our tribal identities, I want to try and create a hero. Someone who will willingly lay down their life and take a bullet. Not for a loved one, but for a complete stranger.
Please welcome the amazing Derren Brown. Now, I'll be honest, I'm very, very excited about interviewing you, but I'm also terrified.
Okay.
Because I'm not sure that this is an interview. I feel like it may have been conjured up to put me into this situation so that in 6 weeks' time I'm fighting a tiger.
Yes.
So with that in mind, I thought I'd have a little bit of protection in case you try and get in my mind. So what
They do work, so yeah,
what
you are immune.
I need you to promise me that nothing bad's going to happen and I'm not going to be fighting my mum in 6 months' time.
I promise.
Good.
Wonderful.
Now, I absolutely loved the show.
Thank you.
It's called The Sacrifice.
Well, just sacrifice, in fact.
Just Sacrifice.
Just Sacrifice.
I apologise. I clearly didn't love it that much.
Clearly. The musical version is Sacrifice, exclamation mark.
It's brilliant. In case you haven't seen it, could you explain it to the audience without giving anything away?
Well, I essentially, using my covert mojo, try and get a essentially fairly racist, Trump-supporting American guy with strong views against immigration to lay down his life for a Mexican illegal immigrant.
Yes. It's absolutely nail-biting.
Thank you.
It's incredible. And there's such a crazy moment in it. And then you speak to him. Were you scared that he was going to kill you? There's such a powerful ending. And then you talk to him.
Yes, there's often with these shows there is, you know, that moment where I have to go, it was...
Yeah.
It was just me.
Yeah, and presumably they're like, fuck it out! But we never see that.
Yeah. Well,
oh, that's cool. Hey, how you doing?
I think what tends to happen is, although when you watch the show, like within an hour, when the person's journey is really concentrated, it can feel like, you know, is it just cruel? Why isn't he punching you? Whatever. I think at that moment, the relief of, oh, this isn't real, and it's just him, as it's just me,
yes.
I think comes with all that feeling of how positive it's been. So yeah. I think apart from that initial, the terror of the moment, I think it's really just such a positive thing. And of course, since then, I mean, the guy is a changed guy.
Yeah.
His views have changed.
Well, this is what's extraordinary.
Yeah.
Like, if you haven't seen the documentary, basically, you turn, like you say, kind of a racist Trump supporter into a liberal guy. And it made me think, do you feel like this is possible for the world? Like, I almost want to sort of drop you into the White House to see if you can get your head inside Trump. Do you think you could do that? Do you think you could alter Trump's viewpoint?
That's a tricky one, isn't it? With the show, we really tried with the show not to make it sort of overtly political, because it isn't. It's about kindness, and it's about empathy and discovering those things. But we didn't make it into the final show, but at the start, you see this sort of audition day when I find the guy that's going to do it, and we chose this guy, Phil. But there were 100 people there, and we'd asked for people with strong political views. So, got 50 right-wingers, 50 left-wingers, and we just tried some experiments with them, and a really interesting one, because we all like to think that we make our political views come out of a kind of a rational appraisal of the issues at hand, and it's really not true. They come out of a gut-level response we have, and specifically to things like threat and disgust and contamination, right? These are sort of pre-wired things in us, right?
Yeah.
And depending on how easily those feelings are triggered in you and how strong they are, the stronger they are, the more right-wing you tend to be. So there's a basic right-wing urge, which is to protect the group against outside threat. And that can happen at the expense of weaker individuals. Then there's a liberal urge, which is to protect those weaker individuals.
Yes.
Even if that means at the expense of overall stability, right?
Yeah.
So you sort of need both. You always need a dialogue between two. So we got a room of Conservatives, had them imagine they were invincible. Just did like a simple, just close your eyes and imagine you've got this, superpower. And then they answered questions, socio-political questions on various issues. And they gave much more left-wing answers than you'd expect, because they'd been primed with this feeling of invincibility. And then the fun bit was taking the liberals and doing the opposite. So we created a feeling of disgust and contamination in the room. So we had it stunk, there was like fake puke on the floor, and there was crap and rubbish everywhere. And we sort of apologised, said, sorry about the state of the room, we've got to be really quick. So they had this they were primed to feel disgust, and then they answered questions, and they gave much more conservative answers.
Yeah.
Because suddenly, it was a really interesting thing, right? Just how what we like to think is how we just rationally weigh up these issues. It isn't. It's a real gut-level thing that's entirely unconscious.
I love the fact that that what we believe we feel can be just rejigged quite simply.
Yeah, well, that is something I think I'll always find interesting and always want to sort of show, but ultimately I think you have to...
Have you ever
You can only change yourself, can't you? You can only do it one person at a time. So
yes.
If you try and change the world, then you're putting your own bias and your own nonsense out there, and you're not really
See, that's the thing, that's what I'd be doing. I'm such a megalomaniac. I'd be like, right, how can I fix you up?
I suppose because, I've made a living out of seemingly controlling stuff that you shouldn't be able to control. Yeah. And actually, I think in life, I like the Stoics and the big Stoic lesson of not trying to control things that you can't control.
Yeah.
So that's actually how I live. I don't try and influence people and change things that aren't just within my own thoughts and actions, because that's an unhappy way of being.
But that's what I love about you. So you wrote a book on happiness based around Stoicism. Yeah. Like the art of why more or less is good enough.
Yeah, why everything's more or less fine. Bear in mind, what we're told nowadays quite a lot is set your goals and believe in yourself enough, and then you can achieve anything. Like, visualise what you want, believe in it, believe in yourself, and you should have that thing. Yeah. And it's a really damaging, toxic message, really. I mean, obviously it's great to have, a bit of positive self-belief, of course, and some people, obviously need that, but the idea that you've failed if you don't succeed because you didn't believe in yourself enough is a really bad cycle to get into. It's like playing a game of tennis, right? This applies to any sort of success or trying to change social injustice, whatever. If you go into a game of tennis thinking, I must win, you're trying to control something that you're not in control of. So if you start to lose, you're going to feel anxious, you're going to feel like you're failing. Yeah. Whereas if you go into a game of tennis or whatever thinking, I'll play as well as I possibly can to the best of my abilities, then you're going to play better. You won't have that feeling of failure if things aren't turning out the way you want. Yeah. You play better. So it's then, just differentiating what you're in control of and what you're not in control of. What I think they miss, though, which I also think is really important, and where I came to at the end of writing the book, was how important anxiety is. Yes. You just try and avoid it. How do you know when you need to change something? How do you know when your job isn't right?
It feels like anxiety
unless your job's unhappy.
Demonised recently, hasn't it?
Yeah.
That you kind of we can't have it. Don't get anxious.
Yeah.
Whereas it sort of helps you become a better person, isn't it?
Yeah. The danger is that you end up valuing a sort of security over growth. Yeah. And in order to grow, you have to allow yourself to be insecure, and you have to experience anxiety. Like, you don't cross the road on your own without letting go of your mum's hand at some point, right? So something has to sort of die or be let go of, or feel frightening in order to go somewhere new. So allowing anxiety to sit, not like reliving it all the time and letting it own you, but owning it and allowing it its place, I think is really important.
Yeah, definitely. Because the book is about happiness, did it make you think about what makes you happiest?
What makes me happy?
Yeah, yeah.
I don't even think happiness is really what it's about. I think meaning is what's important to people. Right? Meaning trumps happiness at any point. And the way you find meaning in life is to find something that's bigger than you, and then you just throw yourself into that thing, right? Yeah. It's something that gets you out of yourself, out of just this, into something that means more.
Do you think that's maybe why there are increased levels of anxiety amongst kids? Because if your sort of sole job is to cultivate your brand, which is what social media is, if you're a young man now and you've kind of got all that energy, or a young woman, you can just go to this and it will just turn you off.
What I think the real killer is like if you're at a party and you meet somebody you generally see the best version of themselves. Normally, right? As in whatever they decide to present to the world.
Yes.
Or if you have a couple over for dinner, you sort of see the couple normally operating at their best,
Yeah.
right? So you start to build up an idea that people operate at a better level than they actually do, because you're comparing it to your experience of yourself, which carries with it all this sort of ugly, embarrassing, clumsy giant thing that you carry around with you called your private life, and all the sort of embarrassing stuff that comes with that. So, and it's hard to remember that because you just don't experience that when you're meeting somebody and generally seeing this sort of shiny version that they give you. But then add to that the fact that we are brands, that we're presenting ourselves constantly as brands, so you're now...
But you wonder why kids are frazzled. It must be so tough, because obviously it's amazing and you've got loads of things you can do on there, but it's also like and you'll never be the best.
Yeah.
And yet it thrives on be the best, who's the best.
Yeah, it's just nonsense. You have to be the best. You want to be good enough. Like when you're a baby, you scream and somebody normally comes and provides you with what you want.
Yes.
Right? And that's... and what the mother or the caregiver, whoever it is, has to do is slowly disillusion you and let you realise that's not going to happen every time you scream. They have to let you down a little bit, so you learn an important lesson earlier on, that you don't just scream and get what you want.
I love that as a quote. Mothering is slowly disillusioning.
It is.
My mum's been disillusioning me for years.
But it's important, isn't it? And then you get some people, mentioning their names, who become, you know, powerful and successful, and they think that they can scream and get what they want. It's a very infantile urge, and it just isn't. That isn't what life is. You know,
so we need you to dress up as Trump's mum.
Go back in time.
Disillusion him. Feels like
Always
it would be
happy.
special.
Always happy to dress up as a mum.
Yes. Do you ever use your? I want to call them powers. But do you gifts? Do you ever use your mercurial talents in the everyday?
I was in Llandudno at a magic convention. So I was wearing a three-piece velvet suit. I had quite long hair at the time. I may or may not have had a drop earring.
I like it.
And there was a guy who was really aggressive with his girlfriend and clearly just looking for a fight, whatever had happened. Really kind of...
Yeah.
And so he says something like, well, what are you looking at? Or do you want to fight? Or words to that effect. And I, weirdly, I had described how to deal with this situation. I used to do, like, hypnosis shows, and afterwards I talked, well, you could use it in self-defence, and here's how.
Yeah.
So I said to him, the wall outside my house isn't 4 foot high.
Right.
And the key to this, if you ever find yourself in this sort of situation, is to have a phrase or something you can go into that makes complete sense, but it's completely out of context.
Right.
So what you're not doing is you're not playing the game. You're not going, oh, I wasn't looking at anything, or, no, you're just setting up another game by completely shifting the variables to a different subject.
Did that work then?
Well, I said to him, the wall outside my house isn't 4 foot high.
Yeah.
What I'm hoping for is to induce a lot of confusion, because when people are very confused, if nothing else, all that adrenaline's going to go, but also they become hyper-suggestible, so then they do then follow, like, a hypnotic... I was going to stick his feet to the floor, that was the plan. Anyway, so I said to him, the wall outside my house isn't 4 foot high. He went, what? I said, I lived in Spain and the walls were quite high, but here, I mean, they're nothing. They're like nothing. They're really low. He went, oh, fuck, and then just all this... He just collapsed, basically. His girlfriend walked off. He's now sitting on the side of the road. I sit down with him. I promise you this is true. It sounds like I made up. I promise it's true. Sat down with him and asked him what had happened. His girlfriend had bottled someone that night, and they'd had this whole argument. And I'm now weirdly sort of listening to his story and trying to offer some advice, and then left. But the key is, all you've got to do is put yourself in someone else's head, right? Yeah. So if you want to save a seat next to you on the bus, don't put your bad there, because that's what everybody else does, so they'll just get annoyed. Just pat the seat and nod and smile. No one's going to sit there. You just got to put yourself in their head, that's all.
It's just genius.
Yeah.
Of course that makes sense.
Yeah.
Brilliant thing. Like, that's a lovely little life hack.
There you go.
Somebody watching this is going to try that.
Yes.
He's going to start a fight and then we're kind of get one of my conservatories. Lovely. Absolutely fascinating. Ladies and gentlemen, the wonderful Derren Brown!
Wow, you're telling me about this, I'll tell you about that. Start talking shit, you walk into another trap.